Somebody get on that tether.
Got it.
Sorry about this, little buddy, but better you than me, you know what I mean?
The Abyss wasn't just another underwater movie, it was James Cameron's near-catastrophic passion project that almost killed its cast and crew, literally. Cast members held their breath until they passed out. A rat was actually drowned and resuscitated on camera. Ed Harris nearly died during filming and still refuses to discuss the experience decades later. The set was built inside an abandoned nuclear reactor. The production was so grueling that Mary Elizabeth Mastrantonio had a physical breakdown on set, screaming, "We are not animals," before storming off. Today I'm diving deep into 20 weird facts about the Abyss that reveal why this underwater nightmare became one of the most dangerous film shoots in Hollywood history. And stick around for our bonus fact, the shocking truth about why James Cameron had to cut the film's most important sequence and how it changed the entire meaning of the movie. Let's submerge ourselves into the brutal reality behind the Abyss. Fact number 1, the underwater filming didn't take place in the ocean, but in the containment building of an abandoned nuclear power plant in South Carolina. The production team filled the 7.5 million gallon concrete tank with water and black food coloring to create the appearance of ocean depths. The massive structure, originally built to house a nuclear reactor that was never installed, became the largest underwater film set ever constructed. Crew members nicknamed it the Hole, and it wasn't just damp, it was downright apocalyptic. With temperatures hovering around 70 degrees Fahrenheit, cast and crew suffered from constant cold, pruned skin, and ear infections. The production ran 24 hours a day, with morning for principal photography and nights for maintenance. Many crew members developed a condition they called the Abyss flu, not an actual flu, but a state of perpetual cold, exhaustion, and irritability from spending months in a dark, wet, enclosed space. Life imitated art, James Cameron later said. The cast was under the same stress as their characters. Fact number 2, Ed Harris nearly drowned during filming, but has refused to discuss the experience publicly for decades. While shooting a sequence where his character Bud Brigman is submerged 30 feet underwater, Harris's diving helmet filled with water when a safety diver mistakenly turned off his air supply instead of providing more. Unable to communicate and rapidly running out of oxygen, Harris frantically signaled for help before another diver finally realized what was happening. When Harris was pulled from the water, he punched the safety coordinator in rage and exhaustion. The incident was so traumatic that Harris has declined to participate in any documentaries, special features, or interviews about the Abyss. In a rare comment years later, he simply stated, "I'm not talking about the Abyss, and I never will." Cameron himself confirmed the severity. Ed was a trooper. The physical demands on the actors were unlike anything I'd asked of them before. They knew the risks, but not the toll it would take. Fact number 3, Mary Elizabeth Mastrantonio suffered a complete emotional breakdown during filming. The breaking point came during the resuscitation scene where her character, Lindsay, drowns and is then revived with CPR. After multiple takes of having Harris pound on her chest, spit in her face, and slap her repeatedly, Mastrantonio finally snapped. She bolted up from the floor screaming, "We are not animals," before storming off the set, leaving the entire crew in stunned silence. Production shut down for the day. What viewers don't realize is that in the finish scene, we're watching a genuine emotional breaking point. The exhaustion and desperation on her face isn't acting, it's real trauma captured on film. Mastrantonio was so physically and emotionally drained that the bruises visible on her chest during the sequence weren't makeup. They were actual injuries from Harris performing CPR take after take after take. The physical toll was one thing, she later reflected. The psychological toll was something else entirely. Fact number 4. The pioneering underwater cinematography required the invention of entirely new equipment. Standard camera housings couldn't handle the pressure of deep underwater filming, and existing lighting systems weren't powerful enough to illuminate the massive tank. Cameron, ever the innovator, collaborated with his brother Mike Cameron to design custom underwater housings for the 35mm Panavision cameras. The team created a revolutionary underwater communication system, allowing Cameron to direct his actors while they were submerged. Each actor wore a specially designed helmet with a two-way radio that worked underwater. But these systems weren't perfect. They frequently malfunctioned, leaving actors unable to hear direction or breathing instructions. Most impressively, they developed an entirely new, fluid-breathing apparatus based on real experimental technology. The scene where the rat is submerged in breathable liquid? That wasn't a special effect. The production team actually submerged a real rat in oxygenated fluorocarbon liquid developed by medical researchers. The rat survived the ordeal, though animal rights activists were outraged when the film was released. Fact number 5, the water in the tank was so heavily chlorinated to prevent bacteria growth that it dissolved the skin of divers and actors. After just hours in the water, cast members would emerge with their fingers and toes bleeding, their skin literally peeling away. Makeup artists had to constantly reapply waterproof makeup as the chlorine would strip it off within minutes. Michael Biehn, who played Lieutenant Coffey, developed a serious skin condition that required medical attention. His hands became so raw that he couldn't touch anything without experiencing excruciating pain. The camera operators, who had to remain submerged for hours while filming, suffered even worse effects. Many developed painful rashes that lasted for months after production ended. "We all had body parts literally falling off," recalled one crew member. "You'd be sitting in the makeup chair and chunks of your skin would just slough away." The production went through medical supplies at such an alarming rate that local pharmacies couldn't keep bandages and antibiotic ointments in stock. Fact number 6. The underwater filming required cast members to become certified divers, but their training went far beyond standard certification. They underwent a specialized training program developed by diving coordinator Al Giddings, which included learning to hold their breath for extended periods, clearing flooded helmets while submerged, and handling emergency equipment failures. Ed Harris and Mary Elizabeth Mastrantonio trained for weeks before filming began, but it wasn't enough to prepare them for the physical demands. During one sequence, Harris had to hold his breath for over 2 minutes while swimming through a submerged corridor. After several takes, he began suffering from hypoxia, oxygen deprivation to the brain, and temporarily lost consciousness once he reached the surface. The most extreme training was reserved for the climactic sequence, where Harris's character must make a 2,000-foot dive in an experimental diving suit. For technical accuracy, Harris learned to use a real liquid breathing apparatus, not just for show, but actually breathing oxygenated liquid for brief periods, becoming one of the few humans outside of medical research to experience this alien sensation. Fact number 7. The production schedule was so grueling that James Cameron himself nearly drowned during filming. While setting up a complex underwater shot, Cameron's air supply ran out, but the safety diver with his backup regulator was too far away. Unable to signal for help due to poor visibility, Cameron had to make an emergency free ascent from 30 feet down, holding his breath all the way to the surface. When he finally breached, gasping for air, the first words out of his mouth weren't about his near-death experience, but instructions to reset for another take. The incident happened not once, but twice during production. After the second time, producer Gail Ann Hurd threatened to shut down filming unless safety protocols were improved. "Jim was willing to risk his life for a shot," Hurd later said. "That's admirable in theory, but when you've got 200 people depending on the director to complete the film, it becomes irresponsible." This tension between art and safety became a defining characteristic of the production, with Cameron pushing everyone, including himself, to physical and mental breaking points. Fact number 8. The infamous water tentacle sequence, revolutionary for its time, was the first photorealistic computer-generated character in film history. The ethereal water face that mimics Mary Elizabeth Mastrantonio's expressions required technology that simply didn't exist when production began. Cameron collaborated with Industrial Light and Magic to pioneer completely new CGI techniques. What's remarkable is that the entire sequence, now considered a landmark in visual effects history, was nearly cut from the film. The effects were so complex that they weren't completed until long after principal photography wrapped. When test audiences saw a rough cut without the completed water tentacle, they were confused and disengaged. The ILM team worked around the clock for months, using a Cray XMP supercomputer, one of the most powerful in the world at that time, to render just 75 seconds of footage. The computing power required for that single scene would be equivalent to running a modern smartphone for over 19 years continuously. When the sequence was finally completed, it cost nearly $1.5 million, approximately 5% of the film's entire budget. Fact number 9, the tension between Cameron and the studio executives became so severe that at one point he nailed a Fox executive's cell phone to the wall with a nail gun. As production costs soared and the schedule expanded from an initial 60 days to almost 140 days, 20th Century Fox began applying intense pressure to wrap filming. During one particularly heated exchange, an executive producer called the set to demand that Cameron cut several key sequences to save time. Already working 18-hour days and dealing with the physical dangers of the underwater shoot, Cameron reached his breaking point. When the producer's cell phone was handed to him, he reportedly took a nail gun from a nearby set builder and fired it through the phone, pinning it to the wall of his production trailer. "You tell him that's what's going to happen to his career if he keeps interfering with my film," Cameron allegedly said to the stunned production assistant. While the studio contemplated shutting down production entirely, they ultimately relented, recognizing that no other director could salvage the complex shoot they had already invested millions in. Fact number 10. The drowning rat demonstration wasn't faked. They actually submerged a live rat in oxygenated fluid, and you're watching the real thing on screen. The breathable liquid shown in the film is based on actual medical research into liquid ventilation. Scientists had successfully demonstrated that mammals could breathe oxygenated perfluorocarbon liquid, exactly as depicted in the film. For the scene, animal handlers carefully lowered a white rat into the actual fluid while a veterinarian stood by. The rat initially struggles. That panic you see is real before adjusting to breathing liquid. After filming the sequence, the rat was carefully extracted and reverted to breathing air normally. According to production reports, the rat survived and lived a normal lifespan afterward. Go ahead and like and subscribe because we're about to reveal even wilder facts about this. Underwater nightmare, including the secret reason why the studio forced Cameron to cut 30 minutes from the theatrical version, completely changing the movie's message. Fact number 11, Ed Harris and Mary Elizabeth Mastrantonio performed their own stunts for the drowning sequence with nearly fatal consequences. The scene where Mastrantonio's character sacrifices herself required her to be dragged through frigid water while holding her breath. After multiple takes in the cold water, she began suffering from hypothermia, her core temperature dropping dangerously low. The medical team wanted to halt filming, but Cameron insisted on one more take, the one that ultimately appeared in the film. During this final attempt, Mastrantonio held her breath so long that she temporarily lost consciousness underwater. When Harris pulled her from the water, the panic on his face isn't acting. He genuinely feared she was dying in his arms. The CPR sequence that follows wasn't entirely simulated either. Harris actually delivered compressions with enough force to crack one of Mastrantonio's ribs. You can see the moment of genuine pain on her face when she gasps back to life. What looks like exceptional acting is actually a document of real physical trauma captured on film. Fact number 12. The production ran so far over schedule that cast members missed other film opportunities, leading to lasting resentment. Michael Biehn had been cast in a major role in another film, but was forced to withdraw when the Abyss continued shooting months beyond its planned completion date. This cost him not only the role, but a significant payday. Ed Harris had committed to a Broadway production that began rehearsals before The Abyss wrapped. He was forced to rehearse his stage role via satellite during brief breaks in filming, learning lines for a completely different character, while still deep in the psychological stress of playing Bud Brigman. The underwater filming was originally scheduled for 10 weeks but stretched to over 25 weeks. By the final month, several actors were working despite doctors' recommendations that they take medical leave. "We weren't making a movie anymore," one crew member recalled. "We were survivors of a shared trauma, just trying to make it to the end alive." Fact number 13. The pressure vessel diving suits used in the film weighed over 100 pounds each and caused severe physical strain on the actors. Ed Harris had to wear the massive suit for hours at a time, causing muscle tears in his back and shoulders that required physical therapy for months after filming concluded. The helmets of these suits weren't just props, they were fully functional diving helmets with working communication systems. However, they weren't designed for the extended wear required by filming. The weight of the helmet pressing down on the spine caused several crew members to develop chronic neck problems. During one harrowing incident, a seal failed on Harris's helmet, while he was 30 feet underwater, causing it to rapidly fill with water. The safety divers couldn't reach him immediately, forcing Harris to tilt his head back to create an air pocket while he awaited rescue. This wasn't an isolated incident. Equipment failures became so common that the production hired additional safety divers whose sole job was to monitor the actors for signs of distress. "Every day something went wrong," recalled underwater camera operator Al Giddings. "And when things go wrong 30 feet underwater, people can die." Fact number 14. The emotional trauma of filming The Abyss was so severe that it contributed to the divorce of James Cameron and producer Gail Ann Hurd. The couple, who had previously collaborated on The Terminator and Aliens, saw their marriage disintegrate under the pressure of the troubled production. Hurd frequently clashed with Cameron over safety concerns and budget issues, often serving as the buffer between the director and increasingly anxious studio executives. As Cameron pushed the cast and crew beyond reasonable limits, Hurd found herself torn between supporting her husband's artistic vision and protecting the well-being of the production team. Their marriage officially ended shortly after principal photography wrapped. While neither has spoken extensively about the personal toll, crew members recalled heated arguments between the couple, often concerning Cameron's refusal to compromise on his vision despite mounting human costs. "The Abyss didn't just break bodies," one production assistant later commented, "it broke relationships. We all went in as one person and came out as someone else entirely." Fact number 15. The underwater sets were so massive and complex that they remained in place long after filming concluded, creating an eerie, abandoned underwater city. The 7-million-gallon tank contained elaborate structures including the interior of the drilling platform, sections of the submarine, and the alien NTI habitat. When production finally wrapped, dismantling these massive underwater constructions proved prohibitively expensive. Instead, the sets were simply abandoned in place, creating what some locals described as an underwater ghost town. Divers who later explored the abandoned nuclear facility reported finding perfectly preserved pieces of the film set, creating a surreal time capsule of the production. Years later, when the property changed hands, new owners were shocked to discover the elaborate underwater structures still intact. Urban explorers occasionally broke into the facility to dive among the remains until safety concerns finally led to the tank being drained around 2010. "There's something poetic about it," Cameron noted years later, "a film about a mysterious underwater structure left behind a mysterious underwater structure of its own." Fact number 16. The film's groundbreaking visual effects team had to invent entirely new techniques for the pseudopod sequence. The computer-generated water tentacle that slithers through the underwater facility represented such a technical challenge that Industrial Light and Magic, ILM, initially told Cameron it couldn't be done. Undeterred, Cameron worked with ILM to develop new rendering software specifically for simulating fluid dynamics, technology that would later influence everything from Terminator 2 to Jurassic Park. The shimmering, translucent quality of the water creature required each frame to be rendered multiple times with different light calculations, a process that would take 2 to 10 hours per frame on the most powerful computers available at the time. What few people realize is that the final sequence combines multiple techniques. While the water tentacle itself was CGI, the water drops falling from it were actually filmed in reverse. Droplets were fired upward using compressed air, and the footage was then played backward to create the illusion of water-defying gravity. "We were inventing the future of filmmaking," said visual effects supervisor John Bruno. "We just didn't know if we'd survive to see it." Fact number 17. The original ending of The Abyss featured massive tidal waves threatening coastal cities worldwide, but test audiences found it too apocalyptic. In Cameron's director's cut, the aliens, NTIs, raise massive tsunami walls at coastlines around the world to demonstrate their power and warn humanity against self-destruction. Studio executives, alarmed by the dark turn and concerned about runtime, demanded the sequence be cut entirely from the theatrical release. This fundamentally changed the film's message. Without the tidal wave sequence, the aliens' motivations and the film's environmental warning became significantly muddled. The missing footage cost nearly $5 million to produce, a massive sum for visual effects in 1989, and its removal devastated Cameron. He fought bitterly to preserve his original vision, but ultimately lost. When the special edition was released years later, restoring the sequence, many critics agreed that the film finally made sense thematically. "They gutted the heart of the film," Cameron later said. "The theatrical cut is like a beautiful body with vital organs removed. It looks intact from the outside, but something essential is missing." Fact number 18. The Abyss's troubled production became legendary in Hollywood, influencing safety protocols for underwater filming for decades afterward. Following reports of near drownings, equipment failures, and the physical breakdown of cast members, the Screen Actors Guild launched an investigation into working conditions on the set. As a direct result, new guidelines were established for underwater sequences, including mandatory rest periods, limitations on dive times, and requirements for safety personnel. The ratio of safety divers to actors was permanently increased, and protocols for emergency evacuations were standardized across the industry. Despite these improvements, The Abyss's reputation became so notorious that actors began including abyss clauses in their contracts, specific language limiting the conditions under which they could be asked to perform underwater work. When Cameron approached actors for Titanic years later, several reportedly declined based solely on stories they'd heard about the abyss. "Sometimes it takes a near disaster to create lasting change," reflected underwater coordinator Al Giddings. "The abyss pushed everyone beyond safe limits, but the industry is safer now because of what we learned." Fact number 19. The Abyss pioneered underwater filming techniques that weren't used again until James Cameron's Titanic nearly a decade later. The massive underwater tank constructed in South Carolina created a controlled environment that allowed for unprecedented camera movements and lighting setups impossible to achieve in open water. The specialized underwater communication system developed for the Abyss became standard equipment on major underwater productions. The system allowed directors to speak directly to submerged actors through their helmets, dramatically improving performance quality by enabling real-time direction. Most impressively, the production developed a revolutionary underwater lighting technique using powerful HMI lights positioned outside the tank. By precisely angling these lights through the water, cinematographer Mikhail Salomon created the illusion of shafts of sunlight penetrating deep water, an effect so convincing that other filmmakers assumed it was created in post-production. When preparing for Titanic, Cameron's team retrieved equipment and notes from the Abyss production, effectively treating the earlier film as a multi-million-dollar research and development project that made his later underwater success possible. Fact number 20. James Cameron wrote the first draft of The Abyss when he was just 17 years old, originally titling it The Deep. The story was inspired by an incident from his teenage years when, as a member of his high school diving team, Cameron had a frightening experience during a night dive. Descending alone to retrieve equipment, he became momentarily disoriented and experienced what he later described as a profound sense of alien isolation. The script evolved significantly over the next decade, incorporating elements from Cameron's growing interest in deep-sea exploration and extraterrestrial contact. A key influence was a lecture Cameron attended on liquid breathing technology being developed by the U.S. Navy. The same technology featured in the film's most memorable demonstration with the rat. What's remarkable is that Cameron held onto this story through his early successes with the Terminator and Aliens, insisting that The Abyss would be his most personal film. The production challenges nearly broke him, but he remained committed to his teenage vision. Some stories haunt you, Cameron reflected years later. They demand to be told no matter the cost. The Abyss was my white whale. It nearly destroyed me, but I had to face it. James Cameron designed the non-terrestrial intelligence aliens as a direct rebuke to the hostile alien narratives dominating science fiction. While films like Alien and Predator portrayed extraterrestrials as inherently threatening, Cameron deliberately created beings of light and peace. His original concept was even more radical than what appeared on screen. The glowing, angelic aliens were meant to represent an evolutionary path humans might one day achieve themselves. In early drafts, the film explicitly revealed that the NTIs were not visitors from another planet, but had evolved in Earth's oceans millions of years before humans, developing an advanced civilization in the unexplored deep sea. This concept, that advanced intelligences might share our planet unseen, reflected Cameron's deep fascination with ocean exploration. The most profound hidden meaning, visible only in the director's cut, is that the aliens are essentially offering humanity a mirror. Their threatened tidal waves aren't an attack but a demonstration, showing humans how their own destructive behavior appears from an outside perspective. It's this reflection of humanity's capacity for both destruction and redemption that gives The Abyss its title. Not just a reference to ocean depths, but to the moral abyss humanity teeters upon. The real abyss, Cameron once explained, isn't in the ocean, it's in us. The Abyss wasn't just a movie, it was a crucible that permanently changed everyone involved. Its technical innovations paved the way for modern CGI. Its physical and emotional trauma created lasting bonds among survivors. Its production nightmares rewrote safety protocols for an entire industry. 3 decades later, the film stands as testament to both the heights of creative ambition and the human cost of pursuing that vision without limits. When you watch The Abyss today, you're not just seeing actors perform, you're witnessing people pushed to their absolute breaking point in service of creating something revolutionary. If you enjoyed these revelations from the depths, go ahead and dive into the like button and subscribe for more Hollywood secrets that will change how you see your favorite films forever. Remember, in the deepest darkness, sometimes we find the most brilliant light.